Okay, I'd ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing after. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask everybody to just take a moment of silence in remembrance of Representative Greg Clark. I would also ask you to take another moment to remember the victims of the Newtown, Connecticut. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. First off on our agenda, we're going to jump right into a public hearing that we're supposed to have starting at 7. So let's going to put us right on schedule, and I've already talked to the two ladies on how I'm going to railroad this through. They said I could. Okay, this is what we call the final public hearing, and the city has to hold it because we received $404,750 in a fund, a grant, and so we kind of held the money, and it's part of the end of the process is to make sure that everything's accounted for and the public has the opportunity to enter any complaints or hear anything that they have to offer. And I see that we don't have a lot of publics, but is there anyone here in the room that would like to offer any concerns or anything else on the work that was done at the John Cram shelter? If not, council, do you have any comments?
Looks great.
Yeah. Wonderful job.
This is a grant that is not a loan, just so that everybody knows. Some of these are pass-through grants, and this one is an outright grant to the Graham shelter.
It's been really great. Just telling me we've got a lot of, now the whole downstairs is handicapped accessible. Been able to take a lot more seniors and people with disabilities, and it's just been fantastic. Mr. Mayor, can I say one thing while I'm here? I just wanted to take this chance because I don't get to be in front of the city council very much, but I've said this to Mel. I just want to thank the city for everything, and especially for the fine work of the Vergennes Police Department. They have been very, very, very kind to so many of our people. And, you know, it's not everywhere that you see that. And, you know, I don't think we could be here doing the work we do without them. So I just really, since we're here, just thank you.
We do appreciate that comment, and we'll ensure that the chief hears that.
Oh, the chief knows.
You'll see it appears in his evaluation. He does get one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he gets one. And I'm not going to try to put Meg on too much of a spot, but would you like to offer anything?
No, I just think from the outside looking in, it looks like an incredible asset to the community, and I was pleased to work with the city, very pleased, and with Elizabeth, so thank you.
Good, thank you. If there are no other comments, I'll bring this hearing to a close, on the public hearing to a close, and then we'll move on to our next item at hand. And ladies, you are free to stay, or
Thank you very much.
thank you for coming tonight. The next one is to hear from the senator and senator-elect and representative. Who would like to go first? We really would like to know what's going to take place, and I don't know if gun control is on the agenda this year, but who'd like to go?
So you'd like to know what we think is going to happen in the Senate?
Yeah, kind of give us a heads up, and if there's something that we can do to support you, I got a little piece I'm going to share with you here in a minute from a mayor's point of view that none of the other people in the room know that's happening, but I'll let you speak, and then I'll try to throw in my 2 cents later on. So
Well, as usual, we have budget issues, big budget issues, so we'll be looking at that. Most of the departments have asked to make do with less, no increases, even though salary and step increases and insurance increases are eating into the budget. My own focus will be on healthcare, to make sure we sort of stay on the path and do the work that we need to do to get to a place where we can decide whether or not to go forward with universal healthcare. And that's mostly cost savings and efficiencies and improving healthcare and healthcare access. We'll be doing a lot with mental health. The state hospital washed away, and we came up with this great plan for more community-based services and a smaller hospital. We depended a lot on FEMA funding for the construction, which is not fallen through, but has not met our expectations. Some of the community things that we have built and are in construction and due to open soon cost more than we expected, so we've had to put some pieces on hold. And at some point, we have to take a look at the whole situation in the state. We had a number of people who were hospitalized for severe illness, and we're not meeting those needs. The hospital emergency rooms are full, and staff is stressed out. The police are really having a tough time. They have to babysit in the emergency rooms, that sort of thing. We will probably take up death with dignity, which is a real hot button issue. We'll probably take up decriminalizing marijuana, another hot button issue. And I'm guessing between the three of us, we've gotten several hundred emails about gun control.
Mhm.
And speaking for myself, I don't see, I understand from members of the NRA, my husband was a member for a long time, until they didn't endorse me, and then he resigned. And my insistence, members do agree there are a number of steps that could be taken that won't affect ordinary law-abiding gun owners, people who have them for hunting or other kinds of recreational things, or even for home protection. And I think we should take a look at that, but that's not the whole issue. Every time we have a disaster, everybody goes straight to gun control, and there are a lot of other pieces to it. So that's my perspective
Good.
on what's going to happen.
There was a news commentator drilling a senator from Washington about gun control, and she says, "I'll have that debate with you any day." She says, "It's got to be a little gun control, but there are the mental health issues and some other issues that really need to be focused upon equally at the same time, because it's not just gun control that's going to resolve."
I agree.
So, good luck.
I agree. Thank you.
Good
And
luck.
one other thing, I think you're going to see more of an emphasis on Lake Champlain, water quality in Lake Champlain, all of our surface waters.
Good. Great. Chris?
Well, I'm very glad you asked Claire that question, because now I learned a lot more about what's going to be going on. As a senator-elect still. So, quite honestly, I mean, it's very helpful to hear that sort of overview. I don't know what my committee assignments will be yet, so I don't really know what I'll have the best opportunity to work on. But for instance, if I go back to the world of agriculture, or even if I don't, I think I'll continue to work on my particular interest is sustainable economic development, and a lot of that's been through the lens of farm, food, and forestry programs, because I'm still 88% farmland and forest land, and it's a great opportunity, a great resource, something that's a great natural fit for who we are, and so I'd like to continue to work on that. But then again, I don't know if that's the committee I'll be on. So,
Beautiful. Thank you. Diane, turn the floor over to you.
Sure. It's going to be a little bit empty having my partner that I've served with for 4 years now gone. So part of, I think, what will be first on my agenda will be welcoming the new Edison 3 representative, whoever that may be, coming up. In the House, very similar to the Senate, we will have the same issues that Senator Ayer has spoke of, but I'll add to that from what I'm seeing on the House side as being things that are maybe going to be coming up to the top of our agenda, which is I think we're going to take a really good serious look at, or at least from my committee's perspective, in transportation and in others on climate change, given you know, Irene and some other things that we have learned. Transportation and its emissions, our CO2 here in Vermont, we generate quite a bit with our vehicles. The total Vermont issue on that is like somewhere between 40 and 60% of the emissions in Vermont, or our air quality, is because of our vehicles. So that's going to come squarely within my committee's, hopefully my committee. The committee assignments haven't been given out, but I'd be surprised if I did not go back to transportation, as well as other committees. I think, you know, it impacts everywhere. So you'll probably hear us talking a great deal about that, and what can be our response? What is it that we can do, you know, that within the parameters in our small state to make a difference? So there's a lot of people working on that. And second, it's no surprise that in the world of transportation that the amount of spending, you know, each year is not meeting the need that is out there. And we had asked ourselves, what was the difference? What is the problem? Can we identify how much should we be investing in our transportation infrastructure to meet a need which we form, which would be a standard of good repair? So what we all own as Vermonters, our roads, bridges, and infrastructure, it has been determined after the study committee that I was appointed to this summer, which was the Transportation Funding Study Committee, looked at that question, and we have a definition of what need is. Just need, not expanding the transportation environment or any grandiose plan, just what we own, bringing it to a state of good repair. We would need to, in addition to the approximately $224 million that we take in state dollars, we would have to put in an additional $250 million every year for something like the next 30 years, just to get what we own. I don't think we have the capacity to actually look at that serious, but it was an important piece of information that we should know. I think our task is going to be looking at that and educating the public and the community on the truth of the situation and what's possible as a group of how we want to address this. So we have the state piece that we've looked at, and I think the senator touched on this briefly. The other piece is that we're watching what's happening in Washington, D.C. with great care. And we've had several opportunities for half-day updates on what happens if the fiscal cliff occurs. If this happens in DC, what happens to our Vermont budget? What happens to what we do? Or how are we going to be impacted? And we shall see. That has not finished playing out, but we will find out soon enough when we get back in January. So that's something that we are all going to be dealing with within the budget constraint to see where that all comes out. There will be conversations, because there's entities working on electric vehicles on the road. You know, we have natural gas vehicles, we have hybrids, we have gasoline, we have 100% electric vehicles out on the road, and who knows what we're going to have in 10 and 15 years. You know, maybe garbage will be running the vehicles on the roads of the future. But our committee's going to need to look at what is that going to be like in 15 years, and how do we develop a transportation system and mechanism for funding that encompasses that. So it's a pretty broad vision. Not in my committee, but I made some notes on what I thought was happening that I was aware of within Vergennes or in all of Addison 3 that would be a good opportunity to bring forward here tonight, Mayor. For three things. The energy. Addison County has been a part of Sun Common. I'm sure you've heard of it, the 1,000 panels in 100 days. Mine hopefully will be going up soon as I pass a credit check. But
my neighbors will go up in January.
Okay, so we'll be in a similar process. I'm looking forward to working with that. But I've got word today that coming out in January, there's going to be a rollout of a new Vermont energy audit kind of challenge. That's going to be statewide, so I'll be looking forward to that information and sharing that with Peter, who's now replaced me as the energy chair, but I stay in touch with him on that. Actor, I am your board member to Actor, so I participate in that. The new facility is 99.something% totally funded. You will be happy to know, and I hope that you'll be pleased to hear, that no towns have been asked, or there is any funding from any of the communities in that. That is 100% beyond, or funding raised that was outside of asking communities for that. That was privately grants and earmark many years ago, but I'm sure you'll be hearing from us when we come back for the operational piece of that. So I just wanted you to know how well that they have done that. That's looking at being opening in the spring of 2013. The railroad station has moved. Did you notice? I'm very thrilled with that. I'm sure you are too, because it has been the bane of many of our discussions as to where that, if it was ever going to happen. So I am thrilled that it has moved. It looks beautiful, and it will. And then I have been in communication monthly with BDS around where we're going next on that, and have had many conversations as I go about, and it'll be no surprise as I talk to people, about who could be a tenant there. So know that VTrans and VGS, we're looking for somebody to step forward that will work out a lease for that space in time to come. The governor has announced that he would like to see the train move from Rutland to Burlington by 2017 up the western corridor. So I will be teaming up with him on that to see if we can, that has been a dream too, way beyond the railroad station. Anyway, there's many other things, but I think that will give you the highlights.
You didn't mention the bullet.
The bullet?
The bullet?
Oh, the bullet train?
No, the bullet they found at the train station in one of the walls.
Oh, I didn't do it.
Good answer.
We have history people working on it. We're going to try to decipher it out where it came from. So sorry to
Okay.
interrupt.
No, that's quite all right. I thought you'd be thrilled about that. So I'm sure you'll have questions of your own. We've had an update on the gas line too. Vermont Gas has had a briefing, and I'm sure that you're aware of that as that's
I
coming
think
through.
Mel's going to, I
At some
don't know
point
if that'll be part of your report.
They were going to be here tonight.
Yep. Mel's going to report on it in his city manager section.
Okay, I think that's about it for me. Thank you.
Does the council,
Diane, is there a timetable, or do you know of a timetable for finding a replacement for Representative Clark and what that process might look like?
A timetable around that, what the process is that the district, which is the 5 towns, organized Republican Party will get together at their own, time frame and seek 3 names and present 3 names to the governor. And it is from those 3 names or beyond that the governor can appoint. So I have reached out to members. This is not something that I would be involved with. This would be something that is strictly within the Republican Party's authority to put together. So I have not heard anything as of yet. But thank you for asking.
a lot of different rumors floating.
Well, if you're interested, you should contact your local
Right.
organized party people and tell them.
Any other questions of anyone? Randy?
Have they finally figured out how much the healthcare bill is healthcare is gonna cost us?
Well, we know what it's not going to cost us. At the moment, we spend about $5 billion a year on healthcare. That's everything from aspirins to health insurance to actual care at a doctor's or a hospital. And we wouldn't move forward with a plan that costs more than we're already paying.
It's not really an answer, but I guess I gotta accept it.
Well, it's not going to cost any more than what it would cost us if we do nothing.
Okay.
Still a lot of moving targets.
Beg pardon?
I said there's still a lot of moving targets there as far
Well,
as being
healthcare
able-
expenditures
Yeah.
are moving targets in
Yeah.
general, but
Yeah.
as we trace them, we look at what we're, costs are going like this, and we're trying to have costs go like this, but at the same time cover more services, a lot less waste, administrative waste, insurance company overhead, duplicated services, over-treatment, that sort of thing, more outpatient stuff.
Excellent. Anyone else have any questions?
I have a couple. One, I have two or three things. One of the things is just a comment when I overheard you speaking about anticipating some federal cuts that are going to affect state government. I just would ask that as you make those decisions, you always ask yourself, are we just passing this on to the municipalities? All right, so because that's not solving a problem. So I just want to make sure that you pinch yourself, every time that you make some kind of a decision that isn't being passed on to us. The other thing, there's a little bit of frustration with a small f, in that the state of Vermont is the largest landowner in the city of Vergennes, and obviously Northlands Job Corps we host, and that lease expires on June 30th, 2013. And it's very odd how little involvement there is between the state of Vermont and the city of Vergennes. What's strange is that when there's going to be a new facility in Newport City, there's a host town agreement or host town discussions, and when a facility exists like in Vergennes, there's no discussion whatsoever. And we've tried to encourage meetings, and we've been unsuccessful every time, and just really confused about that, to be honest with you. Why is it that Vergennes, I'm going to just say, isn't recognized when in reality we're carrying a tremendous burden, both with our police department and financially for the facility, and the pilot program doesn't cover all of our expenses. So I'm wondering how does that happen? What's wrong?
Well,
Go ahead.
sure. As you know, Senator Ayer and myself have met at least once, if not several times, with the commissioner of BGS to talk about this process. There's an upcoming lease that's due, as you mentioned, the date 2013, and there's a lot of jobs that are out there that are in flux. Plus, you're aware of the fact that right now, this December was a different contractor is coming in. So all
And that's changed because that's been extended to March 31st now. I don't know if you got that word
Well,
yet.
I was somewhat aware of maybe I've broached the conversation. I'm not sure how you can extend a contract to an entity when when you don't have a lease beyond June 2013. I just posed a question to them.
The LUTEC was supposed to be done as of 12/31/12.
Right.
Their portion has been extended to March 31st, 2013. So we do know that much. And we do know from some good resources that they will announce mid-March who the replacement contractor is supposed to be. So we've had to push Pry and Andy a little bit, looking for the same information too.
I found that out today too.
You did? Okay.
If we all team up, we might be able to get something.
Well, I think they sworn to secrecy down there in Washington myself, but.
So the question you asked, Mel, was why? Or how?
Yeah,
And-
why is it?
And I have spoke with you about this, and actually come to visit with you in your office after having some meetings at BGS on this as well. Have gone to both BGS and now to the Secretary of Administration this past week and asked for a few things. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to receive them, but I've asked for a couple of things. One was to actually involve, or in some way, how can the city be involved? And one of those ways is if, as they're looking at this, if there could be an advisory committee or some sort of communication. I am very concerned about the lack of communication between all of the entities involved, which is the state, the feds, the city, the community. And that isn't exactly something that just popped up today. But there's going through some changes out there within our city that will impact a lot of employment and there's a lot of people holding many cards very close to their chest. And I just want you to know that, well, you know, that we ask the questions and stay with it. You know, it doesn't mean we're going to like the answer all the time, but we're aware of it, and we're engaging in conversations with them. And I've asked them myself to reach out to you to see if there's a way that they can involve you. I have not heard since then if there's been any negotiations. The Department of Labor does not deal directly with the state of Vermont. The U.S. Department of Labor actually has a law firm. That is another layer of communication. So there's many layers to this onion that pose some struggles and some challenges as we go forward. So I think my concern as I go forward is the worst case scenario that I would say is that the U.S. Department of Labor decides to not renegotiate a lease, and the state has empty buildings. The city has empty buildings. That to me is my worst case scenario. And then from there, anywhere up, that we have an opportunity, I'm saying extremely positive with this, that all entities have an opportunity to work together for a new day out there that could look in a variety of ways.
Agreed.
Did you have
Any other questions? Okay, super.
Just a few, may I ask?
Sure.
Do you have any indication at all that the Department of Labor is not interested in renegotiating the lease? I mean, if they're going to bring in, if we take it at face value that they are bringing in someone new on April 1st, and that's just 3 months or so before the lease.
Do you mind if I answer? Is that okay?
No, that's by all means, please.
So my read on that is not knowing information directly. Indirectly, my feeling would be that the Department of Labor would not be working with an RFP and looking at a contractor if its intent was to not stay. That would be my feeling. But now finding out that the date has been moved may have something to do with the fact that they're still under negotiation for the lease, and how does that fold with the RFP and the contractor. So maybe it will all become as clear as mud.
Okay, sir.
You're welcome.
Some of Otter Creek's best. Excellent. Any other questions, Rennie, you have anything, or anybody else? Shannon, feel free if you'd like to ask a question. If no one else, then I'll introduce something that's going on so that I want to make you three aware. The 8 mayors of the state of Vermont are
the 8
mayors.
8 mayors.
8
Okay.
mayors.
I was thinking he was talking about.
And it wasn't on the 5th day of Christmas either. No. There are 8 mayors in the state of Vermont. And we are establishing a group as trying to come up with a proper title, whether it's a coalition or whatever. And there's going to be a news release sometime in January. And what we're going to do is come to Montpelier on a particular day, well announced, not the first week, and just let everybody know, whether it be the governor or the legislators, what we see is our areas that we would like to see addressed during this year's legislation. So it's just our take and figure out what we can do to help support that. So just giving you a heads up.
Good. Are you working with the League of Cities and Towns so that they know what your issues are? You can work
There has been some discussion with them about some of our ideas and whatnot. Nothing is finalized as to, and that's why I can't let too much out of the bag other than I'm trying to give you a little heads up and just give you some ideas. So that we're trying to get established, and we're meeting. We've met a couple times so far, and we're going to have some more. So something will be coming in January. And on that note, if there aren't any other questions, I would ask that feel free to come back at any point, any time. Let us know. We'll squeeze you in if you have some information that will help us understand what's going on. Give us a heads up. We'll make a spot for you. Front of the meeting, wherever. So it best suits all, so.
And vice versa, Mayor, too, and everybody on the city council. It is an absolute joy to be able to have someone come to Montpelier that I haven't seen there. I've had the occasion, and I appreciate it. City Manager Mel will call if he is not adverse to calling if he has an issue, or if there's someplace that has a rub that he sees that I may be able to potentially help with or even know about, so that during casual conversation, things can have a way of getting resolved. And Mel has come and testified several times, and because he gave me a heads up, I was able to actually be excused from my committee and made sure that I supported him in his testimony. So anybody, on any issue.
Excellent. And thank you for coming tonight and taking time out of your very busy schedules. I understand you got another meeting to go to?
Well,
Can I ask a quick question?
You may, sir.
And maybe that it's too big for a quick answer. It's just, the Vermont Gas Systems pipeline is being proposed. There's a lot of meetings going on, community by community. And I don't know if Vergennes is participating in, or what your status is relative to that. I mean, because you're not on the direct path of the original, on the main line, but the distribution line. I don't know how you're looking at the project as a whole.
We have supported them in the past. We just were made aware in between meetings that they would like to see another support letter from us. We had to be a little tricky on how we got enough heads together to without holding a meeting, but we have enough consensus that we would support it, and that's going to be an item that we're going to address here a little bit later tonight, is we have a letter of support. Mel had prepared and sent off with enough votes, and we'll bring that to the table and finalize that vote tonight. But yes, we're aware of it, and Mel will probably give a little bit more. Are you good now?
Well, I can. We actually had Vermont Gas scheduled to come here this evening, and when we started piling the agenda up with between the public hearing and inviting you, we just felt we offered to them to come back in January. All right. So anyway, that's one of the things that the city council just needs to talk about is the January schedule. Because the adoption of the warning is in there that we need to deal with. So they're going to be coming here. I just know that it's not January 22nd. That's all I can tell you. It's not that night, but it's going to be some others. Chris, obviously for Vergennes, I attended a number of meetings when they were looking at the various alternative routes for the transmission line. And we actually concluded our work, and then after that, was when this whole international paper thing came up. And one of the things I can tell you that when they were working on this, one of my concerns was the international paper wasn't talked about at the time, but one of my concerns is the amount of money that they had the amount of money that they were going to generate from this project was not going to bring transmission to Middlebury. It was only going to bring transmission to the Moncton area and then a distribution line to Middlebury. And I really felt that made no sense, because if you're trying to get to Rutland, you need to have a transmission line. And I even said I was concerned that their project would end up being, I think I even said that if I was sitting on the Public Service Board, I wouldn't do it. I would vote against a project that did not bring transmission to Rutland. All right, I told them. Maybe they didn't like to hear me say that, but that's what I told them. Because to me, if you're going to have a system throughout the state, that's because Vermont Gas is the only entity, they hold the franchise, if you will. All right, so now their project includes transmission throughout. Now, relative to Vergennes, there is no. I don't want to say that we're not affected, but we're affected differently in that there is no transmission line through the city of Vergennes. There will be a substation or whatever you want to call that thing, at or near our border. I'm going to say in the Moncton Road area, and then there would be distribution lines that would come into the city. And You know, one of the things that we're trying to do by meeting with Vermont Gas is to get a better understanding of how much of Vergennes is going to be served by it. You know, we don't, you know, because I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody. You know, and I think that there's areas of Vergennes that may not be served, and they should. And that's why our letters of support have been kind of vague. Okay, like, you know, we appreciate the cheaper fuel and we think it's good. It will be good for our businesses and representative, but, you know, we're not blessing their design because we haven't seen it. All right, so that's and that's what we're hoping, that in January we'll get that information.
Which makes sense now in light of when we had our update and, you know, we had the overview. And I asked if I could get a Vergennes area map of where it was going, because I didn't want to misspeak and say, oh, it's, you know, their plan is to come here and have it not be. So I asked them for their map as well.
You asked for it.
I did.
Did you get it?
No. They were coming here tonight.
They're anticipating some resistance in various parts of Addison County.
Yeah.
And even though they're going to file their act, is it 148?
248. 248.
Day after tomorrow, they
Right.
say that they will still continue meeting with towns and processing where that ought to be. They started with the Velco line, they moved to Route 7, and now they're looking at other rights of way. And so I think they're not telling anybody where the final line is because they don't know.
Changes and they don't know.
And it depends on who's mad at them and has the most money.
As always.
Yeah, same old story.
It's all part of progress. We're going to impact things, we need things like gas line to come through and help.
Who are your large customers, like BF Goodrich, United Technology?
Country-owned products.
Country-owned products.
Potentially the schools.
United Technology.
Job one.
Schools, Job Corps,
Job Corps,
potentially.
yeah, school.
And also, I mean, you know, we have some,
Residents
you know, lots of Vergennes is extremely dense.
Right.
And where that's, you know, part of the reason why, you know, Vergennes kind of jumps off the page. You know, the mobile home park, you know, 73 units within, you know, sitting on 10 acres of land, you know, that's a lot of customers, you know.
When you can save 44%.
That's correct.
On fuel.
That's correct.
When you're, you know, talking about lighting and other issues and helping to support. I mean, it's another fossil fuel, but it's still
Right.
a huge savings. Right.
Senator-elect, Representative, thank you very
Yes,
much.
Thank you, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Have a pleasant
Have a
evening,
happy holiday.
Thank you for inviting us.
and feel free to come back.
Okay.
Anytime.
Yep. And if you come for the town, if you come for the town, yeah, there's some cookies back there if you want to take one with you. If you come for the town annual meeting, there will be a dessert social. And so come about, what is it? We usually do about, yeah, okay, the meeting's at so about 6 o'clock, we start a dessert social and get people all sweetened up, and then sugar wears off, and they just kind of sit there in a chair and, no, only kidding, only kidding.
No, we have, well, 3 that night, because
Yeah.
we started
Yeah.
at Waltham, then we come here, and then Addison at 8, and then 2 lunches. So they're not all at the same time, but it really helps.
I'm trying to think of how I can spice it up this year a little bit. That line dancing might be an idea.
See you later.
All right, have a good evening. Okay, let's see, we're there. Warrants, any questions on the warrants? I know that they're all signed. Questions on the warrants? And I got to see the date when the meeting was, so I can ask about. May I have a motion on the city council meeting minutes for November 27th, 2012? Randy makes the motion. Do I have a second? Second. Rennie seconds it. Corrections, omissions, errors, anyone? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Questions on the budget? Mel, you got any issues that you want to point out?
Yeah, I'll just kind of briefly say, one of the things when you're looking at a budget report, you know, lots of times we talk about, you know, like we're 48% of the way into the year, 50% of the way to the end of the year, which is true. But the fact of the matter is that budgets don't really work that way. At least the city budget doesn't work that way. In the case of the revenue page, if you look at the bottom, it says that we're 96.92%, and you think, wow, 50% of the year, we're 96% of our revenues. Well, that's obviously not the case, and it's because the entire tax billing for city purposes shows up on line 1 on the assumption that everybody's going to pay. So that's probably not accurately stated. The other thing is, if you look at things like a pilot state property in the middle of the page, and you see that we're at 97.91, again, you would think that that would be good news. It's actually not good news, and that's because there's not another check coming. So we budgeted $65,000. Our check was $63,641, which represents 97% of the budget, and that's it. So again, to review the revenue page, you really need to look at it line by line. Looking at the bottom line doesn't really give you any information. Relative to department budgets, I think you can look. You can, if you wanted to generalize, you can look at the totals. We pay our insurances quarterly. Some of our insurances are paid quarterly. Some are paid monthly. Obviously, payroll is every week. At this point, this budget that you have, actually, your budget, mine's a little bit newer. I think your budget probably does not reflect 2 more pay periods before the end of the calendar year. All right. So when you see your administration budget, that's under 50%, that's good. Police is under 50%, that's good. Public Works is over 50%, and obviously the reason for that is because of paving. We did. It says here we did 99.82% of our paving already. I can tell you that if we need to buy coal patch, we're buying it. All right, we're not. That line item may go over a little bit. Jimmy cut things maybe a little bit too close. The other budgets, obviously, some of the appropriations that we've already paid, the voter appropriations as well. Fire department, I was explaining to Rennie, I met with Jim a couple of weeks ago, and I think I might have said, Jim, are you going to spend any money? You got this budget, but you really haven't spent any money. And there was a large bill, a warrant, a fairly large bill of around $11,000 for repairs to the ladder truck. And I can tell you that's why Jim hasn't been spending money. When you send a ladder truck to the repair shop, you really don't know what that bill's going to be, and once you start it, you can't half repair a ladder truck. You got to repair it. So that's why that budget, you don't see a heck of a lot of activity in there. And that bill came in. You can see that the ladder budget, the vehicle maintenance and repair budget was $18,000, obviously anticipating a fairly major repair. That repair came in at $11,000, and so I think that Jim is probably sleeping a little better now that truck is
I know in the fire department under the building maintenance fund.
Yep.
There's very little expenditure there.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you ever noticed this porch out here.
Yeah.
I assume that's going to get fixed
Well,
because it's rotting pretty badly at this point.
It's very bad.
A few years. Yeah, I know.
This, I can tell you, I have spoke to Bob Jenkins about this, just to have another set of eyes taking a look at it. And I've actually have priced it out, and at some point, please take a look at it. You can see the rot you'll see immediately, but I can tell you to replace what you have out there, a curved copper-shaped roofing,
It can't be repaired and patched or replaced.
It's shot. It's
Okay. I guess I didn't know. I was just curious.
Well, what it is we ended up with ice. Is what happened is that the eaves troughs that were put on the building were not over that section, thinking that maybe we didn't need it. And what ended up happening is some icicles formed, and when those icicles dropped, it penetrated that roof. And so it really is, it's as bad as it looks. It's actually worse when you peel it away. So, I really want to do it right. To be honest with you, we could rip that off, put an asphalt roof over the thing, and call it a day. But what I want to do is get a better handle on what is it going to cost to replace this thing. And it's very possible that, you know, we don't have enough money in the budget, but I think we should have that discussion and pull the trigger on something, because
for me.
doing nothing isn't good. So anyway, that's, you know, obviously sewer department becomes skewed because we paid the $123,000 bond already, so it's kind of similar like paving. You know, you got a $100,000 line item in there and you pay all at once. But I can tell you, I feel.
You gonna talk lagoons? Or
I'm sorry?
You gonna mention lagoons? Or
Our certification?
no, lagoons as far as cleaning? Probably not.
Well, we have a fund. We have a fund established for that. I mean, the plan, you know, our biosolids fund. We do plan on doing some removal of sludge out of lagoon number 1. The problem is that we don't have a permit yet, and Diane and I didn't talk about that. But anyway, Diane and I have been in conversation. She helped us out a few years ago. You know, I think, Rennie, when you were here, you know, with a landowner agreement with them, and I worked with them a couple years ago to get an extension that, you know, that got taken care of, and we're working on a new landowner agreement. And I actually I'd rather own the land, to be honest with you, but if we can't own it, then a longer term arrangement is better, because they actually issue land application permits for 10 years now, Rennie. So if you're,
I don't think they did it for.
they didn't. They used to be 5-year deals, and I think that they finally figured out that it costs a lot of money to get that permit out of the analysis. So, but the problem is A&R issues 10-year permits. The state of Vermont, in our discussions relative to the landowner agreement, they're real reluctant I think about real reluctant. They will not entertain a 10-year landowner agreement. So we're trying to come up with some language so that you know, so that we still get a 10-year permit, but then there's a trigger in there to do it. But we don't have that landowner agreement, and it's sitting on the folks' desk.
Jeff Lively.
Jeff Lively, and so anyway, we're working on that, and obviously. We need to get that landowner agreement, we need to get that permit in place to if we're gonna do any land application this year. But the money part is fine, you know, we have a separate fund for biosolids that's fully funded, so that's fine.
Okay. Anything else, Mel?
That's it on budget.
Any questions for Mel on the budget? If not, just hope and pray for those that do. We have a light year on the snow and ice. So, but that we do have a white Christmas. Okay, so committee reports. I didn't bring my spreadsheet with me tonight. I forgot it. Has anybody got anything in particular that they want to report or update on?
Well, I'm on the agenda, so.
Yeah, I've got an agenda item later too, but Mel and I and some other members in the Recreation Committee met with a partnership on Friday to discuss the results of their survey. Yep, and I've got a copy of that. And there's a little bit of, we're not really sure if that survey's completely done, but I do have some hard copy of the results here, the people that did respond, if people are interested in seeing it.
It's online too. Is it on the city website? I know that
I
Tara
don't know if
emailed
Tara
it to
sent
me.
it, I don't know if she sent it to
Emailed
Judy
it
or not.
around. I'm not sure that
I
it's
don't know.
actually-
Judy gets
Good.
some email stuff, and I get some, both, and,
I'll get it to
So-
her. I'll get a PDF.
okay, yep, and she'll put it on, so. Okay, thanks, Joe. Anybody else have anything? If not, we'll jump right down to, public comment. Any public comment? You're going to talk about 10C, but if you want to take and bring the other issues,
I can wait.
no, you can,
do it
well,
there.
whatever.
Either way.
Why don't you take and we'll separate it and.
Okay. Just wanted to update everyone, thank you, Mayor, on the Planning Commission's activities. A couple of months ago, I was saying that we were looking at the basically a bunch of policies that came out of the municipal plan from 2009 and trying to prioritize and figure out where we wanted to spend time and energy on. Our two newest members of the commission have been jumping right in, and all of our folks who have been on leaves of absences are back. So we've had quite a lot of activity and ideas floating around the table. We're still working on that prioritization process, but we have touched on some things. Again, the mayor mentioned 10B, the VTrans program. We're looking at some things there with maybe some traffic calming, as well as some pedestrian ideas, and we'll get into more detail there. We're also looking at stormwater issues. Again, kind of touching on what Senator Ayer was talking about with the lake, and you know, this all feeds into that. Also, urban forestry, tree inventory for the city, as well as some educational outreach to the area schools. We've been also fortunate enough to be working with a group of Middlebury College seniors in their environmental studies program. They've got some good ideas for Vergennes, specific to Vergennes. And they actually had a presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to attend that. I've invited them to come at a future date to make a full presentation to the Planning Commission, and when that is scheduled, we would of course open that up and have other people attend. It was a really good presentation. Part of that, we also said, you need to address funding. They were also working with Addison County Regional Planning Commission to try to target some funding areas. Daryl Benoit from ACR's PC was at our meeting last night, so we were touching on some of those issues. So we've got some good ideas, and we're getting closer to being able to maybe try to make some of them happen. And just wanted to.
When might that meeting be? Any idea? I mean, a month, 2 months?
I'm hoping, well, they finished their class and made their final presentation for their class last week. So they weren't going to be ready for meeting this week. I'm hoping January or February.
If you would like a slot of time, I would think it would be really nice to be able to get it out to the public.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what you're looking for time, half hour, a presentation. If it's something they're willing to do, we could make it part of probably a February, definitely a February. January, the last one in January, definitely not, I don't think, at this point. But
yeah, half an hour would probably be sufficient. I've been emailing back and forth with them trying to settle on a time. So
let's stay in touch, and let them do their other presentations, and by all means, let the council go to your meeting. But I'd like to actually get it to that next step. Funding would be very interesting, and may arouse some interest from the public. So, great. Anything else, Shannon? Okay, thanks. Old business, police station, 8A. Mel?
Yeah, obviously we had a lot of discussion at the last meeting, and Rennie and I chatted a little bit before the meeting, and I think at the last meeting it was thought that maybe we'd get the committee together a week or so before this meeting, and it took Breadloaf a little bit longer to fine-tune their numbers, and therefore I met with them on Friday, and this is a result of our meeting. And just Rennie and I emailed a little bit, and just really didn't feel it was warranted to have a special meeting of the committee and then turn around a day later and talk about it here. So anyway, this is the latest estimate that Breadloaf has, and let me just tell you that Mike and Chris would any time that the city council would like to have them come to a meeting, they will do that. It's to explain how they do projects, how they came up with these numbers, and I think that would be beneficial as opposed, and not just go to the committee and then come back. I think we're at to me, I think, as Rennie and I exchanged an email about, I think we're at a point where the council needs to discuss the role of the police station committee. All right, and I think that, obviously, originally that committee's job was to, work with George and work with myself and come up with some preliminary plans for this. They completed that, and I think now, we're at the next stage, which is at the city council level about this project. The major difference, obviously, about this estimate and what you have seen in the past really deals with contingency. I think some of the earlier budgets was carrying a 10% contingency. So if you have a project that's 1.8 million with a 10% contingency, you got $180,000 contingency. I think this is a project that's pretty predictable, and there shouldn't be any surprises. Rennie thinks I'm wrong, but anyway, he says no project has ever been done without a surprise, and he's right. But anyway, the way I still think that what I would like the city council to discuss is if we're going to go to a bond vote, I think there needs to be some discussion about what we are bonding for. Now, and the contingency is an important part of the discussion. Lots of times when municipalities put together a budget, it has a contingency and it goes in front of the voters, including that. Alternatively, what we could do is not have a contingency in our budget and move forward with a vote on this, knowing that there may be cost. There may be costs that might possibly come as a little bit of a surprise. And fortunately, one of the funds that we have, the tower fund, could be used in the case of if we did run into some things along the way. Now, obviously, the city council needs to be comfortable with that decision. So, and I know that we're going to, I don't know that we need to discuss anything more than that because we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the agenda.
What's the confidence level? This is like their third run-through probably. There are changes in site costs and land acquisition, but the building hasn't changed much.
Right.
I would love to see these numbers broken down in more detail personally, just because I'd like to look at that.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's available to us or not. But I think I'd like to be able to see things and see how they relate.
Well, let me tell you a little bit. As I mentioned at the last meeting, they do everything is on an open book. Now, let me just show you as an example. If you had an earlier budget, you'll notice the architectural and engineering services in this budget is 5.7%. An earlier spreadsheet had that at 7%. All right. That's not by me arm wrestling and beating both Chris and Mike in an arm wrestling contest.
Well, they've already done 1.3%, that's why.
Well, no, not really. What it is they've actually priced out civil engineering, gotten quotes from other companies, and the number that they were carrying that was part of that 7% was more than it needed. So structural and civil is coming in less. It's just a pass-through for them anyway, all right, coming in less, and so obviously that's reflected there. What they are working on is, it deals with mechanical and electrical, all right, and they actually are having, heating companies, look at this to gain confidence in that number, because they're really just kind of using some rule of thumb at this point, all right, and until you really have a system more designed and quoted, and that number can go either way. I think, Bill, I really think we need to get, I think we need to get Breadloaf to come here and make a presentation, and that kind of a question. Can you give us more detail about things? If we say, listen, we want all the detail that you have. We want the unabridged version of this thing. they'll give it to us.
I guess my next question is timing. You know,
Yep.
do we need a special meeting to do that in order to stay on a certain timetable?
Well, working backwards, the city council's schedule, obviously, the normal schedule of meeting on the second and fourth Tuesdays. I don't want to say that we need to depart from that, but I will say this, that if you follow that schedule, you're going to have a third meeting in January. And the reason is because you cannot adopt your city meeting warning less than 30 nor more than 40 days prior to town meeting. And what that, if you look at the calendar, it means that January 22nd doesn't work. And therefore, the fifth Tuesday in January, January 29th, if you want to have your meeting on a Tuesday, that's the night that you would adopt your warning, all right? A bond vote would be a part of that warning, all right? So, and if it's not a part of that warning, then you've missed town meeting day, all right? So I think that if we are still looking at a March bond vote, we need to have Breadloaf come in at our next meeting.
The meetings look like they may fall like this at this point. January 8th, which is the second Tuesday, January 29th, which is the 5th, February 12th, which is the 2nd, February 26th, which is the 4th, and then the following week, the Monday, the annual meeting would be on March 4th. So that's kind of the structure. We could, if needed, have more meetings
In January.
in January.
Yeah.
Could you repeat those days again, please?
Certainly. January 8th and 29th.
Not the 22nd.
It could be, but-
It could
Right,
be
okay, gotcha.
in addition to, but the 22nd, you can't do your warrants because it's outside the 40-day limit.
And Vermont Gas can't be
And,
here on the
yeah,
22nd.
Vermont Gas can't come here on the 22nd.
Gotcha.
And then February 12th and 26th.
Did they indicate to you, Mel, in terms of like mechanical estimates and so on, if they would have a tighter number in 3 weeks, 2 weeks? Any timetable? Are those out to bid currently, or?
I can't, I don't have a definitive answer to that, Bill.
Go ahead, Zeke.
Last time we talked, when they got done, we were gonna have somebody preview, examine what they're doing, like another company, if I understood that right. When would they be doing that?
Well,
I
that was,
didn't think we had decided to do that. I think that was an option, but I didn't.
Oh, I thought we did decide to do it, instead of having put out the bids.
I think the estimate, I think it was decided that if we were gonna wait and get another estimate, that you would not have a March vote.
Okay, well, I thought we
So
were gonna
the
have
que-
somebody look at it, preview it afterwards.
Yeah,
I couldn't understand why that.
I think we did have that discussion about,
Yeah.
about having another set of eyes look at it
Right.
for reasonableness.
But then I think there was, we didn't decide to do that. That the conversation was that the committee was going to get with Breadloaf and kind of go over the numbers. That's what I thought.
Right.
And
See, I didn't think that, because we can go over numbers, it still doesn't mean anything to me
Well,
unless
then,
there's somebody.
Mel said that Breadloaf puts each phase out to bid.
let's put every
So
component
that
out.
would make it all competitive based on the people responding to the bid.
Not how I understood it.
I was just scanning the minutes to see if I could see anything, but nothing jumps out at me.
And that's what I thought we discussed.
Yeah, I'm reading the minutes right now. It doesn't really say that. I mean, we did talk about it.
Yeah.
So we talked about design build and having competitive bidding for the subcontractors and so on.
Well, I think we talked in general terms about hiring and, about how you do a project, and there's two ways of doing it. You can hire an architect to design the whole project, put it out to bid, and somebody wins, and then you fight over change orders throughout the whole project, all right? Another method of building is doing it with a design build. And then this is a design build open book, and that's why I really think that I shouldn't be explaining, and I've tried to explain Bread Loaf's business, but I really would rather have Mike McLaughlin and Chris Huston come and talk to you about what they do, all right? Because it's not, they're a design build company, and they have an in-house architect. I can tell you, there's companies out there that say that they're design build. They don't have an architect on staff. All right? They don't have engineers on staff. All right? You think you're dealing with a design build, but when in reality there's another firm behind it. So, Bread Loaf, they do not have structural engineers and civil engineers on staff. Those have to be bid out, and so that's what they do. But the architectural and coordinating the construction is what they do.
What I think we need to do is just go ahead and schedule them for the January 8th meeting.
Sure.
Get them here and have them crunch the numbers for us, show us what's going on here, and then we have to make a decision that night how we move forward.
And I think, Bill, your point about getting a little better handle on the components, obviously, I can tell you on Friday, we popped this thing up on the screen. We didn't spend any time on Friday dealing with the site development cost and the facility cost. We totally concentrated on the numbers below, all right? And, I know which ones of these need an asterisk, all right? The second one needs an asterisk. It says $240,000. Now, everybody knows that the price of the property, if we want to look at best case would be buying the property for $229,000 and not buying any land from Vermont Industrial Parks, all right? So there's a potential $11,000 savings.
Actually, it's more than that, isn't it?
Well, if you buy Vermont Industrial Parks land, it goes out to closer to 250.
What'd you say? No.
But then that
What I'm
would-
saying-
Plus the land.
Plus,
You said we'd save 11,000.
What I said is that if we, I don't know what I said, let me just repeat myself.
I know what you said.
We have,
I know what you said.
if we don't buy any land for Vermont Industrial Parks and we get both of those liens discharged, we buy the land for $229.
yes.
Okay? There's your best case scenario on the land. And I don't want to say worst case, because it's not worse, just because you feel you need a different case scenario.
Option B.
Right, all right, which has some subsets in there, all right? So, but the point is, we certainly don't need to buy 14.4 acres, but what I gave you at the last meeting, you total it up, and, it's somewhere between $19,000 and $22,000. So I think that we've been talking about a number that could go as high as 262. So there's your range, and so that one needs an asterisk, all right? And some of the other ones, there's small amounts of numbers, and you put an asterisk, and the difference is $500. It doesn't matter, but some of them are numbers that really move things.
I would really like to see the site development and facility costs broken out. Those are the ones that are more important to me.
Yep.
And it's, because it's, $1.35 million.
What?
Site development facility is 80% of the whole project cost.
Oh, that $198,000.
And the 1.15 million.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, no, we've got this itemization on printing and whatever, and there's no itemization on the top. I hear you.
That's where I'm more concerned.
Right, okay.
Just you might want to let your television audience know what the number you're looking at is.
Well, the bottom line on this particular spreadsheet is $1,779,530. And as I mentioned earlier, if there is no money in that number budgeted for contingencies, i.e. contingencies being sometimes called surprises or overlooked items.
So that does not include the 10%
And-
contingency
correct.
that was in the previous estimate?
That's correct.
And I looked over Bill's shoulder and I saw
Yeah.
it, but I thought people might want to know what you're...
So I think that's fine, Mike. I'll try and get, I will schedule, I don't want to guarantee that I'll get them here, but, I'm quite confident they,
Just for, I don't know about, I tried to get a hold of Chris a month ago with some questions. He never got back to me. I wasn't sure if it's because he didn't want to talk to me without talking to you.
That could possible.
Which could be possible. At this point, I would like to be able to maybe go down there and meet with him and anybody else that wants to go to maybe answer some of my questions in advance of that meeting so we don't take up a lot of time with stupid questions. But I
But
guess.
they may not be stupid questions.
Well, I know, but
No, because
Or let
Ziggy.
me digest it so I have intelligent questions,
Yeah,
maybe.
well, Ziggy may help her understand some of these numbers, or help somebody else on the panel or council understand, so I think.
Or maybe if Mel can get a breakdown and email
Sure.
it to us ahead of time, then
Yep.
we can look at it. That's
Absolutely.
fine. That
Yep.
works.
Yep.
That's great.
And if you have some questions and you think you want to try to get some in advance, throw them to Mel. Mel can try to get those, and then after he gets the answers, we'll distribute them out to the council, and that way you'll get the chance to, we'll have both the question and the answer there, so they can see both sides. And again, that might spark some other questions that, we could send out a second volley.
Okay.
Yeah, because chances are some of the questions that you have or we have, the public's going to have the same type of question.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know,
Yeah.
why is this way? So it's good information for us to get.
Great.
I don't know if it'll work or not, but it would be nice if we had, I don't know if they can do it, I'd have to ask Judy or Jeff, if there's an area on that webpage where we can start putting documents, pieces of information as we get it, so that can be shared as, so they can start looking at it.
I send her anything
Yep.
anything at all, Mike.
Yep,
That's not a-
I wanna see if what we can store volume-wise,
Well,
I don't wanna
these
clutter
are-
it, but,
This is an Excel sheet, but obviously I'd send it to her as a PDF,
Yep.
so that should take no room at all. But
Yep.
I think at the homepage of the website, if it said police station estimate, click, bang, there
let
it
me
is.
see
right?
how we add, I think she knows how to add a tab,
Sure,
and if so, let me talk to her
yep,
in the morning.
all right, I'll get that to her.
Oh, okay.
It'd be nice to put the schematic up there that we have too, if that's possible.
Yeah, I can't remember if I sent that to her, but I have it, yeah.
Okay.
It's there.
Okay,
I haven't
This-
seen
yeah.
that much better schematic.
The three-page, that one I
the
was, yeah,
Or even just a
It's
a
schematic
diagram.
floor plan.
floor plan.
Yeah.
that one I can just forward Chris, because that way it'll be color to her. If it goes in another direction, it'll be black and white. You want it
Yeah,
to color.
preferably color.
Yeah, be color.
If at all possible, it's gonna stand out and separate better than black and white stuff won't be as distinct. So, good. Okay, any other discussion on that?
Well, one other thing, if you haven't driven by, there's 10 cones out there at this site. If you want to drive by, and the property, as you know, it's rectangular, except it has a chip taken out of the corner, all right? And so all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it takes 6 cones to identify the property, to properly identify the chip that's taken out of the corner. And what Jim Larrow and I did this, we did it with a wheel. It's done, a measuring wheel. It's fairly accurate. We could not find a single survey marker, just so that you know, but we have some pretty good area photos. We have a pretty good idea where the property will need to be surveyed at some point, but we have a pretty good idea of where the corners are. We feel pretty good about the setbacks from the road, and what the other 4 cones are is where the building would be located if it was located as close to the street as possible.
So you have that marked?
That's what I have marked, okay? So I will tell you that when you go over and look at this thing, it's like, wow, this is a big building. It's 108 feet long
Yeah.
and 28 feet deep or 35 feet deep. I mean, it's a big building. It really is. But anyway, go over and take a look at it and try to envision this building sitting there, and whether or not that's where it should be located, or whether or not it should be located back, and knowing that if it goes back, then obviously we need to acquire land, and how much land needs to be acquired for industrial park. So anyway, that's out there. You can go take a look at it. I
So
don't think
nothing has
anybody's
changed with Mr. Benoit or anything? He's still involved, I mean, with the Barry?
Bruce?
Bruce.
No, nothing's changed. No.
So he's still interested in things like that?
Yeah.
I see Anna's sign was off, so I didn't
Yeah.
know.
That's right. That's been off for a while.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, next item, city manager's report.
Let me, a couple things. One is I mentioned at the last meeting that the audit was about to arrive, and the draft audit did arrive, but it's in draft form. I've printed it. Joan and I haven't had any time to look at it, but we'll look at it, and that'll get out to the board. The bound version of that will get out to the board for your next meeting. As I mentioned before, the fund balance came through good. We are using a $95,000 cash carryover right now, $95,000 of the fund balance to have a balanced budget here. That number came in at I think it's 144 is what you're going to see. So that's that. Another thing that I've actually been working on, I got a little bit of a challenge going on between the sewer department and the public works department relative to fuel usage. One of the things that puzzled me is the fact that the wastewater treatment plant was the only facility that used up its pre-buy. And I thought that we had a real easy winter last year, and it was the only one that used it up. And in part, there is a reason for it, because it's not apples and oranges, because we bring in some awful cold water from the lagoons that comes into the filter room. And so there is a legitimate excuse for the wastewater treatment plant operators as to why they can't match the public works group. But anyway, what you noticed, actually Joan had replaced her programmable thermostat, but one of the things that we want to do is do better at the wastewater treatment plant, get thermostats set properly, get a programmable, the lab, it should have had a programmable thermostat in there forever, really, because their routine is kind of like a clerk's office. It's fairly predictable when people show up to work. So anyway, we're trying to do some things at the wastewater treatment plant from a fuel standpoint. The next item I want to mention about, I forgot to mention to you at a previous meeting. If you remember when we had the May 16th event, I remember Joe drove by me when Crosby Farms flooded for the third time. We had that 2.5 or 2.6 inches of rain in a 45-minute period. Jeff and Carrie Tart filed a claim. I mean, they filed a claim before, and that claim got denied. And what they did as a result of that event is they actually filed a claim in small claims court. And there was a hearing, I don't want to say it was a month ago or so. The city doesn't run the claim. Obviously, we just give it to VLCT Passive, and they do their thing. And anyway, so there was a hearing. I attended the hearing and testified at the hearing, and the judge ruled in the Tart's favor about the damage that they had encountered in their basement as a result of that May 15th or May 16th event. The league disagreed with the judge's ruling. They really feel twofold. One is that sovereign immunity applies, number one. Number two, the one thing that I don't think the judge quite understood is that if the 10-year event is 3.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, that 2.6 inches of rain in 45 minutes exceeds the 10-year event. Okay, so I don't think that he quite understood the magnitude of that storm. And so anyway, the league has appealed that to the Supreme Court, and there's a hearing scheduled for December 26th, I believe. So I just wanted to let you know about that, but it's kind of out of our hands.
It bumps up to civil court in Superior.
From small claims?
From small claims,
Well,
instead of going to the
I
Supreme.
hope you're right.
Yeah,
It's a lot
I
cheaper.
I hope you're right, all right? But anyway, I didn't think that was the case. I think that the case it belonged in Superior Court anyway, because of small claims court. There's some things that you can't do in that. You can't have discovery and interrogatories. You can't have that type of stuff in small claims. But I hope you're right, Rennie.
So
That's
there's a limit as to what you can claim a small claims court. What is it,
5,000.
$2,500? It's 5,000 now?
Yeah.
More than I thought it was.
But anyway, I just want to let you know if you hear something about it, and obviously it's not in our hands. You know, it's a claim that the Tarts made a claim, and we have insurance that takes care of the city and whatever investigation, legal expenses that they have. The last item is that is absolutely on the top of my list, and that's to sort out the recycling center. And I really wish that I had it squared away today, because today's the 18th of December. And the city council's not going to meet again until after Christmas. And I can tell you, we get slammed at the recycling program as a result of Christmas. And so last year, we had a real mess on our hands a couple of years ago. Last year, it wasn't nearly as bad, and that's because Casella agreed to have special hours for the recycling center. And I don't know if they were open every day, but they were open a lot. So sorry to do this to you, Joan, but if anybody out there that's watching the broadcast wants to know what the hours are, dial 877-2841, and Joan will have those.
And I better have them.
And if you get them down, they'll get posted on the website too.
Okay, all right, so we'll get that. So anyway, that's that. We talked about Vermont Gas. That was the other thing, so I'm all set.
And as far as Vermont Gas goes, we want to disclose that I did a consensus by email from people, and each one replied individually. And I had 4 people that replied. Randy, Bill, Peter, and Joe responded in favor of sending the support letter. I just want that documented, that we would have had a quorum, and so I just want that out there. So
Yeah, I think I included a copy. It was,
Yep,
I think
you
it was
did.
at the end of your package.
Yeah,
Just
you did.
I know, and obviously Bill and Rennie, you weren't on the board when this matter came in front of the city council originally, and it was back in, I'm gonna say, March of 2010. And there was a very similar letter that was written back then, which was supporting them in their effort to get approval of the creation of the fund. Right? This was a two-step process for them. They needed to get approval from the Public Service Board to set money aside to conduct the feasibility of expanding this to Addison County. The city council wrote a letter, or I wrote a letter, the city council approved a letter that went to the Public Service Board supporting the creation of that fund. Right? And so that's what you see in the first paragraph is reference to that, and then of course the other paragraphs is about supporting the project to bring natural gas to Vergennes.
And when they do come, they're gonna have some kind of a drawing where we're gonna know where these lines are gonna be running?
I'm not going to guarantee anything, Zig.
I'm not doing anything till I see those lines.
Okay.
Tell them that.
I'll tell them that.
You
Zig.
tell them that.
Okay.
Okay. City manager is complete. Go to number 10. Number 10A, point of discussion for water tower funds. Everybody got that both electronically, via email, and in their packet. So I'd open up, and again, Mr. Bill, thank you for all your fine work pushing this along. Mel and Bill also met and hammered back and forth a bunch of edits, and I just sat back and I watched. So, but I do have a couple things
Let me,
here.
let me tell you, I talked to Bill about that, there is one other edit.
There is one other edit.
That is needed in there, and I zoned out on something. I had momentarily forgot about the deal that we made with the Friends of the Opera House relative to fronting them up to $52,500 for the balance of expenses related to the sprinkler project, which would be reimbursed to the city upon completion from their grants and tax credits. Point being is that we paid $16,000 and some change, whatever I told you, Bill, 16,000 prior to June 30th. And there's a bill, that I had to add another bill, I had to pay a bill to Green Mountain Power the other day. So anyway, the point is that when that, the $41,000 that you see there, you know, it makes reference to this balance of the loan for Deer Trail, but it does not make reference to the repaying of money that we've fronted to them. So there's another $16,000 that that in essence is owed to us by the Friends of the Vergennes Opera House. And obviously there really isn't a cash flow issue here because we've already collected $77,000, so Joan, right? I mean, something like that.
So
It's not a cash, so what's gonna happen is as the sprinkler project finally gets completed, we will expend up to that $52,500 out of available funds in the water tower fund, and then it'll come back to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's open it up for discussion. Anybody want to start?
Well, the intention of this was to give a brief history of the fund, to look at the revenue sources over an extended period of time, to recognize the fact that even though there are leases that they may be terminated, there are some clauses that they can be terminated, so this income stream is not guaranteed. I also did some research, which was not in here, relative to the longevity of cell tower leases and income streams. We talked about satellites, we talked about all sorts of other options. What I found, and there's not a lot of literature out there, is that particularly in rural areas, because of the increase in bandwidth and usage and so on and so forth, that it's highly unlikely that any of these carriers are going to terminate anything, at least in the next decade. There are smaller units that Alcatel's got something called a light square or something. I mean, there are technologies out there that probably will make these obsolete, but it's not going to be in the near term. So I guess my feeling is that I think we're safe for a while. 10 years, 20, I wouldn't have a clue. And again, I'm not an expert. I mean, there are experts in this field, which you may want to talk to at some point, but that's what I could find. So, and then the other question is, so we have this income stream, and what do we want to do with it? I talked to Mel initially about creating a fund like the Watershed Recreation Fund. I think the conclusion of our discussion was that you can pile a lot of money into a fund like that, but if you're only living off the interest, that it's not, it's in today's financial realm, that's not a lot of money. But I also think that, and Mike, you alluded to this too, that we certainly don't want to spend every penny every year. It would really be smart for us to set aside some for a rainy day, for a project that might need a contingency, whatever that is. So this is intended to start that discussion. If I can get some sense as to what people are thinking, Mel and I can go back, put together maybe a draft policy.
Part of my rhyme and reason for thinking the way I was about putting some aside is we had a fairly good chunk from Northland Job Corps, around $500,000, and we went for a number of years and spread it out and tried to defer taxes, which was fine and well. Could we have done something? Hindsight's 20/20 here, people. We're not trying to throw anybody under the bus. Let me get that out. But is it a wise idea to be able to do like a Ray Davison fund or a watershed fund? Is take a chunk, maybe not all of it, and put a portion of, because like you said, someday this is going to dry up. The well's going to dry up, and so if you can start saving a little bit, that's what we do in life, is put money in the bank or put it aside somewhere to make money off it, so that someday, if we do have some tight times, we have a percentage to pull from. And this could be changed down the road. Did you have something, Randy?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. No?
Well, I initially, 3 points, well, actually probably more than 3 points. One is that with the downtown projects that we have done, at some point, we're going to have to be redoing those, so to speak. They're going to wear down, and we're going to have to, if you look at the basin block, I think there's some work that needs to be done there relatively soon. So we're going to have to be putting some money away for doing those kinds of things. I would like to see it still a focus in downtown, as it is now. And I can't remember the boundaries of the designated downtown, so I don't know whether that should be the designated downtown or just downtown where we set some perimeter and it's within that, but certainly the focus is downtown. I think we should have some mechanism for preserving the fund, because I truly believe that cell towers will be a thing of the past. I don't know how far into the future, as Bill was talking, but it's going to be satellite. It's not going to be towers, and this money is going to stop. And so I think we should do something to somehow preserve the fund, but I don't think it should be preserving the fund like the Davidson Fund and the Watershed Fund and that sort of thing, because as you were saying, the amount of interest that it would earn would be so small that the fund would be almost useless to us. But there should be some way to preserve it. The other thing is that I think, and I hate to keep on creating committees, but I think they're probably, for this fund, because there could be so many different uses to it, there should be some sort of advisory group to the city council that would...
Like an oversight committee that would give a recommendation?
Yeah,
of some sort.
maybe somebody from the partnership, somebody from the Chamber of Commerce, some downtown businesses that are here and can give some input about how the money might be used. And I'm not sure the exact membership, I haven't sat down to look at an exact membership, but something along those lines to kind of help us sort through how the money would be used.
I have a concern about restricting cash or monies going strictly to downtown. We have other places within the city that could use those funds as well. So as long as it's related to the city or within the 1 square mile, it's as long as it's not for the private sector, self-sufficient to an individual, but there might be other locations within the city that we could benefit by using these funds. Ziggy, go ahead.
What's wrong with the way we've been handling it so far? We seem to be keeping it under control. We seem to have, whenever we needed something, if we needed it, it used to be like a backup. When I first came here, it was going to be like a, emergency fund, because in case you needed something to come along that needed to be done. But if you start putting contingencies on it, for this one and for that one, I feel that, like here, revenue can be continued as is, with the city council making decisions on per expenditure basis. I mean, we've done this in the past and we've had no problems. And if somebody needed it for something, we were there.
I just wanted to say that I agree, and I had the same thought as Ziggy. I kind of like the idea of having a fund available to the city council for, projects that may be unforeseen, or that, just the fluidity of it, the way it's running right now, I think is a real advantage to us.
Joe? Oh, not Joe, Rennie, and then Randy.
I know that anything that the council votes can be changed by another council through a vote. I mean, none of this stuff is permanent. We've set up these funds, and they can be tweaked as we go along. But, we're coming from the positions of the now sitting council, and we don't know how a future council will be. And quite frankly, I'm afraid that unless there are some bounds on the fund, it's going to be raided, and there will be no fund left. Which is one of the reasons why I don't like to see it going every place in the city. I'd rather have it as it is now, which is, really restricted. And.
But you're only taking part of one part of the city. You're only doing this, the core. So, I mean, you have other issues. Just a minute, Rennie's probably not done, I'm sorry.
So at any rate, I think there needs to be some bounds on this fund, because we don't know what future councils might do, and I suppose it's their prerogative. If it gets raided and it's all gone and there's nothing to use it for anymore, that's their prerogative.
Bill,
And I-
Randy's
Go
gonna,
ahead, yeah.
Randy's next, and then you can have his floor.
I would say that the fluidity of the program is a good idea, but I'm of the mind that we should take a portion of it and put it into a position where it can earn us something. I'm not saying the bulk of it, I'm saying 10% per year or 20% per year to help, it's not like $2,000, $2,000 a year or $3,000 a year or something that we can put into a fund that will stay there, that it'll grow. And then at the end of 10 years, we'll have a chunk of money there. And if we don't have any more cell towers, great, we've got that money there. We can still use it for projects of some sort.
I agree with Rennie, and I think there should be some type of formal policy that at least, that we can all agree on, because it could be rated. I'm of the mind, well, two things. I'm of the mind that I don't think this should be used for operating expenses within the city. I think it should be earmarked for long-term improvements, whether it's leveraged or not. The other thing I think we need to consider spending is that spending it on projects that can either increase economic development, increase the grand list, increase the prospects of any type of growth within the city. Whether that's downtown or whether it's North Main Street or whether it's, I guess I'd like to keep a lot of it downtown, but again, I don't think you can, I think it could be within the entire city. Or maybe a percentage of it is used downtown or set aside as a matching grant for downtown. I mean, there are a whole bunch of options we can look at here. We're not going to decide it tonight, I don't think.
No, definitely not. I could use $20,000 to get a TV program in here to do a segment on Vergennes. They're beating on our door to try to do something, so, I mean,
But
stuff
I
like
think-
that
I think one of the
would
things,
be the location to.
if these leases run for 10 years, as they're currently negotiated, we're looking at $1.2 million in 10 years. That's $120,000 a year. Now, it kind of goes up and then drops a little bit, but that means we're not talking just, if you set aside 10%, I mean, you could set aside 50% and still have a pretty good chunk of money that you could use. So, I guess I'm just throwing that out from my perspective as to what I'm thinking, that, we actually could save $500,000 and not have it can grow a little bit, it's not gonna grow much, but have that as a nest egg, for whatever happens, whether it's 5 or 10 or 15 years down the road.
Randy was up. Go ahead.
I 10% is kind of a low amount, or 20% is a low amount, but 50%, 25%, 30% set aside, and then use the rest of the money for non-expenditure, not for budget purposes, but for long-term improvements. But I believe it should be used for municipal things, buildings, pump house, police station, fire station if necessary.
I certainly agree that it shouldn't be used. I agree with the point, it should not be used for operation expenses. I like the list that's been generated here, as an example.
One of the points of discussion is, should it be commingled with the reservoir fund?
I would say no.
I agree with you. I'll
No.
just drop it there. Let's keep those,
It shouldn't
funds.
be mingled with anything if we're gonna do this.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the, take so much from the reservoir fund, take so much from this fund, combine it to do a project.
Well, I get, my feeling there was, when I made that notation, is there may be a project down in the basin that is a great recreational project that some of those funds could go towards. But let's say we want to build a facility, or, you know, put money towards a facility, and the other money is going to do some, you know, buy equipment, or buy benches, or buy grills, or whatever. They both could go towards the same project, but they would be individual amounts of dollar going into something. And again, the council, regardless of what you do, there's got to be someone that makes that decision. Whether there's an oversight committee that advises the council still has the final decision regardless.
Oh, agreed. Any more comments, Penny? The one thing that I'd like to see added, just below the 1, 2, 3, 4 on page 2, municipal capital improvement, I'd like that, just after the word, the bold improvements, I'd like to see add to building internal and external structures. So that it helps with clarification to what you're talking about. Because you might have some external, it just helps with the clarification.
You're on what, the top of page 2?
No. Page 2.
Yeah, but after number 4, the next.
After number 4, that next sentence.
Yep.
After the highlighted, or the bold, improved, I'd like to see added to building internal and external structures to any, then just insert that.
Okay.
As it helps with the clarification. And I think I understand, but really would like someone to throw a definition as to what is meant by the downtown project support, is so that there's no gray there. You know, right now, we're using it sidewalk
That's real
improvements.
generic, I'll tell you.
Huh?
That's real generic.
I don't know if we can add some words in there, or give something to give more of a clarification to what that equates to. Joe?
Yeah, the other thing that I'd like to see added, you know, in light of the possibility of, you know, there has been some discussion about possibly using it towards a new construction, as in the police station. Have some language in there that, you know, that wouldn't limit it to be from being used for something like that.
That would not limit it, or would limit it?
It would not limit it.
Yeah.
Because right now it says capital improvements. You know, that kind of,
Should be capital
that kind of
improvements
implies
or
that.
new construction.
Right, that implies to me that, well, that capital improvement sort of implies that we're improving something that's already there, but maybe I'm just applying too narrow a definition there.
And then when you say, like, example use of the police station, is it gonna be a percentage, or take it, you know, how are you gonna control that?
Well, when I gave the presentation at the last meeting, I mean, one of the things that Mel and I talked about was, I was basically saying that in my opinion, I could see taking $20,000 a year, 1 cent off the tax rate, from this fund and earmarking it towards a bond payment, which would help defray the expense for the taxpayers. Now, we can't go to the bond bank and say that's gonna be one of our sources, because it is not a 20-year source.
Right.
But I think if we feel comfortable enough, we could certainly earmark that for a period of time. But again, that's here on the table, so.
Yep.
Just a clarification on the points here on the first page. It says recently fund assets have been used as 25%. Actually, it isn't recently. All my recollection since I've been involved with all of the projects except for one, and the most recent one.
It's all about the definition of recently.
Yeah. The water tower fund has been used as a match to the state grants for virtually all of the downtown improvement projects.
Well, we can delete that pretty easily.
Yeah, I put the word recently in there because I think that the way that you had originally written it, it made it sound like it is the original. You love seeing those come.
I love seeing those,
It said fund assets have historically been used as a 25% match for downtown streetscape improvement. Now, I know it doesn't say exclusively, it doesn't say that, you know, so it's, but there, as you know, one of the things I was I negotiated the first lease, all right? And if you look at the chart, I didn't have any money, all right? I didn't bring any money. And frankly, I can tell you the 17-4, we were gonna paint the water tower. That's why we wanted the money for 2 years. We never painted it. And I left in 1998, so I think when I was here, we look back through Joan, and in the early days, the city used some of this money with the American Legion to upgrade the monument in the green. Right now, of course, this is back where we weren't collecting $100,000. We're collecting $8. We weren't a designated downtown. There was no downtown matching grant. So those are some things. That's what we did with the money early on, right, Joan? Yeah. McDonough Park, and there was a couple other things that were done. I according to Joan and Rennie, you can help out a little bit. The chunk of this, according to Joan, some of this money got used for Velco, right? That's what Joan
Didn't
says.
It may
take
have,
about 10 or 15,000 for legal fees?
We didn't have any place else to take the legal fees at the time.
So that happened, just to let you know that.
Well, we talked about that. You thought that's where some of it
Yeah.
went. Yeah.
And then I can tell you, I'm sure that Rennie's correct. And for I came back here in 2008, and the only money that I've used has been towards the streetscape project in front of Linda's Edison Outfitters and Hollyhawks, involving a state grant. And I think I closed out a grant that you finished, which was the sidewalk in front of our building Hungry Bear, that project there.
Because the only one I wasn't involved with, it was Basin Block was finished, but the Little City and the next block up, and I forget, the Stone Block, and all the rest. And we use that fund to match.
And I think that probably where Rennie and I would come to a quick agreement, it's real handy to have that local share in your hand, right? When you're...
What makes a difference?
It makes a huge difference, and I can tell you there are lots of municipalities that are very envious of the fact that the city of Vergennes can just reach over and we can show the grant management folks that
we've got the money.
We're not waiting for some budget to be talked about.
Yeah.
Here's the money, and the city council makes a commitment. So it's very, very handy, but it doesn't always. I don't know that we necessarily have to tie our hands to that, but that's what we've done with it, because it has leveraged the dollars, and it's
does
a
anybody
wise use
have
of the money.
any other questions? Because what maybe Mel and I could do is go back and distill this and actually even go in and put in some, if you're talking about percentages of reserve, we can put in option A, B, C. And we can discuss it point by point and try and maybe bring another draft to the next meeting that we can disseminate, talk for not a half an hour, but 10 minutes and say, let's go in this direction. And hopefully by the time, town meeting comes around, we've got a policy that we can all live with.
I don't like policies.
Yeah, but they're good to have.
They're good to have. They're good to have, like Randy said, any council can change it that they want, but at least it gives you some guidelines.
Makes you think about what you're doing.
Yeah, it keeps you straight and narrow. Thank you, Bill, for that. I think that's a great idea. Go ahead.
Right here, where it's under the first page, fund balance and income. Now, it's mentioned here, the Deer Trail Partners loan with the 18,000, and next 4 years, fiscal year 2013, 19,000. Did we take that from the water fund to give to the Opera House?
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
Partnership,
We
yes.
voted on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
just want to make sure.
Yep.
So this is just a statement on how things can be done, or is this going to be part of what's going to continue on? Is that right?
Are you talking about the partnership and the Opera House?
Yeah.
Or
That's a one-shot deal
that
in
was
my mind.
That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure.
And not that it can't happen again, but it's not
That's
something
not-
that's ongoing.
That's been
Okay.
expressed, number one. Number two, both entities are going to get invited back for the January meeting. And Mel and I have started having a discussion. I don't know if it's made it to them yet, but if it is my feeling, I'll take and stand up. It is my feeling that if they want to apply for funding, that's fine and dandy. They got to go through the petition process like anybody else that would want money from the city.
So you mean go take it to the voters?
Yep.
We may have a discussion on that point, but
That's
we'll get
what
there
I was-
when
No,
we get
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Thinking about.
Yep, no, but,
Yeah.
yes, by all means, so I'm just saying, that's my stance right now.
Well, Mike,
That's
that's
where
what I
I'm
was
hoping
gonna say too, is maybe
to-
take this to the voters.
to see that head and get it out of the hands, because I've had several citizens come to me and said, that, yes, you can play with it, but that's really that's our money that you're playing with, and they want to see some more control, and they're not necessarily happy where things are headed. So, that's what I'm hearing, so I thought I'd share that with you. Okay, good idea, Bill. If you and Mel will take that on, by all means. And the earlier you guys, I'm not trying to put the pressure on you, but the earlier you guys can put it together, when we get it out to the council, it can let them do like I did, go in and mark up what you have for questions. And, if I can compile some questions, then I throw those back to Bill and Mel, and maybe they could tweak something if they had time, or we'll just save the questions for the next meeting.
One thing, Mike, I just want to, Bill touched upon it, and I want to clarify it, and it deals with, if it deals with supporting the bond payment on the police station. And as Bill mentioned, there's no, a bond vote, the question that goes in front of the voters is driven by statute, and it's not, you just simply say, this is the project, this is the debt. You can't say, to be funded this way and to that way. You don't have flexibility in there, all right? Having said that, I think that if the city council feels that this city council needs to go on record supporting an ongoing payment from this fund for as long as it exists towards that bond payment, you can certainly say that, all right? I mean, if you so choose, all right? Knowing that really, as city council members change and other demands on that money change, it can change. But I think that if we're going to be, if the city council is going to do that, I think the city council needs to state that clearly. All right. Either way or the other. I mean, if the city says, no, we intend to make this bond payment out of the general fund taxes, then say that. Let's not confuse the voters whatsoever.
Nope, very good point. Okay, let's move on to item B. We have two more items that we need to get done. It's getting close to 9 o'clock. VTrans, Transportation Alternative Program. Mel.
Well, I don't know if it's Mel or Joe or Shannon.
Whoever wants to do that.
Anyway.
All the above.
Let me tell you that as Joe, why don't you want to take the lead a little bit in this, or?
Well, this grant was, some people emailed me and let me know about this grant. I attended a workshop, was it last Thursday, I guess?
You went
Thursday.
You went Wednesday, I went Thursday.
You went Thursday, to get a little bit of an idea about the, kind of the criteria for applying and what might be covered and et cetera. And of course, I went with, in mind with the rail trail in mind, and one of the criteria, or one of the things that they talk about are rail trails are highly on their list, but apparently, Mel, you had maybe a different interpretation. So basically, there's up to $300,000 available with a 25% municipal matching grant for a transportation alternative in the city, and that would include, sidewalk enhancements, new transportation, walking and bicycle paths are kind of prioritized. And obviously all new language and new information for me. So Mel, I'd really appreciate your input and your take on it.
Yeah, it was pretty, I point blank asked the presenter, because I spoke about the rail trail, and to me, the rail trail is clearly a recreational trail and not a means of transportation to get people from Comfort Hill to the park and ride. I just don't think that's what it is, and therefore, I don't think that building, upgrading, putting a dent in that project, I don't think it would score well. However, having said that, I think that the idea of getting better pedestrian facilities in the north end of town, is important. Right now, the sidewalk ends at Vergennes Redemption Center, and it ends. I think it ends at a buy some Powerball tickets. I think that's how it ends. There's a sandwich board sign there that tells you that's the end. Anyway, the Planning Commission, the new zoning regulations make reference to the Northern Gateway District. The Northern Gateway District is a mixed-use development. That's something new for us. We've never allowed residential use in that district. Now we do. Maybe the police station's going to go out there. Kennedy Brothers met with the owners of the Kennedy Brothers. It actually was Wynn's sister and Lillian's husband the other day. Wynn's trying desperately to retire, and there's some restructuring of the shares of Kennedy Brothers. And Bob and Lillian, talked about their building out there. So I think that the city has a problem. I think that we don't have pedestrian facilities beyond the Vergennes Redemption Center. All right. However, at the same time, we have this vision of something out there at the Northern Gateway District. So I think we have a problem. There is not a way for, let's say, folks that live on North Main Street and wanted, you can come to the bus stop up in the center of the town, but the bus stop also stops at the Park and Ride. Well, you can't get there, without, illegally crossing over a railroad track. So anyway, so that's what we talked about last night, Shannon. Maybe, Shannon, why don't you pick up the ball a little bit, because I talked too much.
Basically, a lot of this goes hand in glove with some of the other ideas that we've been working on and trying to figure out how we want to make happen. But yes, as Mel says, the sidewalk ends. We have a new district where there are commercial, business, retail, residential, and no place to have pedestrian-friendly areas. And that's one of the things that was supported in the plan. So there's a built-in support from the community for this kind of an idea. And, basically we were looking at this and saying, we see a problem, what can we do to address that problem? And this grant, if we approach it as a scoping grant where we're looking at trying to figure out what can we do to solve that problem, that may be a very good use of this process.
I think obviously one of the things that we'd really like to do, Mel and I discuss, and that's try to link the Park and Ride with the city in some way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not lose sight of the rail trail. I mean,
Right.
We have that we know about that.
Yeah, but I think we're all linked together if we could work it out correctly.
I think Rennie wanted to say something?
Yeah, because actually I think someplace lurking around in City Hall may actually be a design of this continuation of the sidewalk system to connect to the Park and Ride. There's no pedestrian access, and there should be pedestrian access to the Park and Ride. Because I remember doing some work on that concept a while back, and obviously we didn't have money. And I think that even some people came to the city and said, when are you going to extend the sidewalk system out on the north end? So I think that would be a good project. And
I think I don't know this, Rennie, I think the study that you're talking about is the study that I shared with Joe. And it's very general. It's very general in nature. And to do a scoping is beyond that general in nature, however short of engineering. And when you read through this grant program, you can apply for one of two things. You can apply for a scoping grant, feasibility type. It'd be, you know, I think, as we talked about the planning commission, I think that we all understand the problem. All right, the problem is that we don't have, there is not an obvious solution to how you get folks to walk to the park and ride. All right, there isn't to me. All right, you can't put them through the new underpass. You know, when you look at that, as far as getting pedestrians through there, you know, one of the ideas that I have, as crazy as this sounds, is whether or not you could reopen the old underpass. You know, could you it got filled in? Could you dig it out and use that as your? Because you're not going to be able to get a pedestrian crossing over a railroad. You're not going to get it. All right.
But then you're still gonna have to cross Route 7 at some point. To get to the.
I'm just talking about getting to the park and ride.
Yeah, but I'm saying, once you get them through the old underpass, then you're gonna have to get them across the road, 22A at some point.
Yeah,
So-
but that's not over the railroad.
No,
Right.
that's the hardest hurdle is getting them past the railroad.
Right. And so anyway, that's just a thought that I have, and it may be dead in the water right out of the gate, and I wouldn't know the answer. So
Okay.
that's why I think that it's like the rail trail project. There's been some effort, a lot of talk about this thing that starts down at Comfort Hill, and the north end of it is extremely complicated. And you got a ravine, and how do you get across Route 22A? It becomes very complicated. And I don't know what the solution is to that.
Put a tunnel under the roads.
The other thing that got talked about on Friday with the semi-joint meeting of the recreation was to look at the rail trail a little differently. And that was because I think it's always been looked at as being a project that starts here and ends there. And conceptually, it sounds great. The problem is getting the end there's no easy solution to the end of that. There's not the greatest solution on the front end of it with the wetland. But one of the things that we talked about on Friday was to really kind of shrink this project back a little bit. Settlers Park, all right? There's a land that Green Mountain Power owns. The city has 9 parking spaces. You know, something that might be a reasonable project would be where folks could pull into Settlers Park, or if they're in the vicinity, they don't need to drive their car to Settlers Park. They go across the street, they go across Bill's land, they go down the stairway, and they go across the bridge, and then there's some kind of a footbridge, if you will, suspended bridge in the wetland area to get to the rail trail, and it goes out and it comes back. Your car, you walk home. Trails don't necessarily have to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've all hiked up Snake Mountain. You get to the top and then you come back.
It could also even terminate at your brother's house or somewhere
Could
along
be.
that. You know,
Well, the
just
other
so
thought,
it's
you know,
something that's.
the other thought that we had was, we talked about Comfort Hill Kennels and their idea of maybe having a dog park, so you think, you know what? So we're just trying to look at this project a little differently, because I know, Rennie, you've scratched your head, you got your hair, some of your hair left. I've been scratching my head over this project. It is a very difficult project, and it's an extremely frustrating project, okay? So I'm trying to figure out a way to look at this thing a little differently, because I think that it has some merit, but I don't want to say, the project got handed to you just like it got handed to me, all right? So, this dream of a rail trail from here to there, it may have just been a good dream, all right? And it really was very difficult.
People are lazy, they don't like to walk that far.
No,
So, and I think these are all things worth looking at. Would it be worth trying to apply for a grant for this scoping to look at 3 viable options and put together some plans and maybe some preliminary budgets, and then go for an improvement grant a year or 2 down the road once that decision's made?
I think so, and the scoping, because of the nature of this, the scoping really has to be pedestrian alternative, and you really have to focus on the extension of sidewalks in the north end. If it's a recreation, but that's not to say that we shouldn't think about, keep that in the back of our head, but the primary, if we were to agree that the problem that we're trying to solve is to get pedestrians to the park and ride, get pedestrians from country-owned products, into the city.
I'm not even sure the park and ride is an ultimate destination. I'd be happy to get them to the police station and Kennedy Brothers and go back into town.
Depends on what goes in that train station too.
Yeah.
Joe, did you have some more you wanted to?
No, just my dream would still be to, especially if the police station goes in, to have the rail trail terminate somewhere in the vicinity of that,
And then we figure out how we get across the
Then we
tracks.
could get, then we could get the people from the basin to the bus or to the rail trail or to Comfort Home Products or whatever in a pretty effective way.
Brendan, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick thing. The, at least in the past, and I don't know with this revamped enhancement, what used to be the enhancement
Yes, right,
grant,
exactly.
they actually they were short of requiring you to do the scoping first and then apply for the construction. So the idea of having the scoping done probably would be an advantage
Absolutely.
for us to be able to get the construction grant, because then they know that we've looked at it thoroughly, there's plans for doing it.
Estimates are good.
Yeah.
And it gives us time to bankroll a bit more cash for
Right.
the match.
Yeah, I can tell you, we had, the stairway was an enhancement project, and I know that this one probably went to, you inherited this one too. This is a nerve-wracking project, the stairway project.
Oh, no, I didn't inherit that one. I did that one. So
did that
if there's a problem with it,
Well, no,
but-
it worked.
but-
It's all fine. But let me just tell you why, like we had to redesign that project in concrete. It's beautiful, all right, it's great. And, but it was over budget at one point. The problem with the enhancement money is that if you get a grant to do engineering and construction, and you do the engineering and you put it out to bid, and the project is way too expensive, if you don't do the project, you gotta pay the money back. All right, and we did the stairway project, it's behind us, it's done, fortunately for Green Mountain Power money, it's done. But that's another reason why you do scoping. You don't wanna not do scoping, take a wild guess on what some project is, design it, and then find that it's like not feasible or you can't afford it, because then you got to pay the money back. So scoping, it does that as well. It gets you some better numbers.
We've had some good discussion on this, but we're getting after, and we've got until another one. Where do we go? What's the
Well,
next step?
The grant application is due January 18th. If there is a 20% match, I can tell you that. I think what I'd be looking for would be for the city council to support an application for the extension of pedestrian facilities and some access management. I think that we have some access management issues out there as well. That would be their scoping, would be the project that would
Would
be scoping.
need a
a
motion?
motion, something to do with scoping, have to be in there so that we could develop that? And Joe, go ahead.
Yep, I'd just make a motion that the city council support the application for this Vermont Alternatives, Vermont Transportation Alternatives Grant.
Have a motion, second?
I'll second it, but just make a comment. You might want to change the wording from support to authorize, only because a lot of times with these grants, they want to have the authorization of the governing body to actually place the grant.
Fine with me, yep.
Joe changes it to authorize, and Renee, you go along with that change. Open for discussion?
I thought we were supposed to say scoping should be in
Yeah, the
this.
scoping, yeah.
So scoping is added as well.
Well, yeah, you can add that. I just, I can, my motion was kind of open-ended on purpose, to apply for this grant.
You gotta apply for the grant, but is that partly because of, we're in the discussion portion.
I mean, I think as long as, you know, the planning commission, you know, some of the members of the planning commission are gonna be involved. This is not a wicked complicated grant application process, but the planning commission, if, you know, supports this because it's supported by the plan, they would assist. We would look to you, Joe, as well. I think as long as we understand that your authorization is applied for scoping for pedestrian enhancement, pedestrian improvements in the north quadrant of the city, I think that's
Perfect.
Sure, yeah.
you know,
Good, that works.
So we agree on that? Rennie, you agree on that? Okay. Any other further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Moving on quickly to proposed amendments to personnel policy, section 5.4, sick leave bank. Mel?
I would request approval of the amendment as presented. It obviously, there's a couple of real differences between what I'm proposing here and what you had in the past, or current policy. Current policy is that the sick leave bank was accumulated by employees giving up sick time. And I can tell you that certainly in the case of the state of Vermont, in other sick leave banks, because you earn vacation time. That's my feeling, is employees earn vacation time, they're given sick time. And the sick leave formula is such that it accumulates to 20 days, and then once it caps at 20, and so the sick leave bank was accumulated by, as people reach that 20, they just spilled days into the fund, into there. And I really think that a sick leave bank, you know, if it's something that employees want to do, it should be fed by employees, not by the city, but by employees earned time, all right? So that's a difference. The other one is that the way that the policy is written, you have to exhaust all of your vacation time, personal time, all other time to access the sick leave bank. And we've had this occur before, where an employee had somebody that was ill in their family. And when you have somebody ill in your family, you can lose sick time. But if you run out of sick time, you could access the sick leave bank. The problem is the policy was written such that you had to use up all of your vacation time to gain access to the sick leave bank. And so when that occurred, then they had no vacation for a year, all right? So to me, it's what I'm proposing here, that it be fed with vacation, and that employees don't have to bottom out all of their other time to access the sick bank.
I'd ask for a motion to adopt Mel's change.
I make the motion.
We got Randy with his hand up first, so I'll take it. You as the second, Ziggy. If that's all right. Open for discussion.
Question, has this been presented to the employees? Has there been any discussion on their part?
Well, it has gone to all department heads. I know that it's been certainly discussed with the Public Works Department.
They told me about it a
Okay,
couple
all
weeks
right.
ago, yeah.
Let me tell you the other.
Go ahead.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There's a motion on the floor and seconded. We're discussing. So go ahead.
I don't know that this necessarily needs to be in the motion, but I can tell you the way our current vacation time is really a use it or lose it formula, right? And so when an employee's anniversary comes up, if they have vacation time on the books, unless they have my permission, it's use it or lose it. And what I want to make sure that it's okay is that we've had some employees lose vacation time recently. And I just want to make sure that it's okay to kind of retroactively allow those employees that had some vacation time that they lost to, because that's typically how this thing gets filled, okay? So I can tell you that, what are we in here? This is December. I think that if we were to say that any employee that had accrued vacation time on their anniversary going back to the 1st of July, is that they lost, that those hours could be retroactively to that date dumped into the sick leave fund.
Let's handle that under a separate motion, because we already have one on the floor. All those in favor of, as Mel has drafted, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. I'd ask for a motion to make this retroactive to July 1st.
For anybody
that had
accrued
vacation.
On their anniversary, going retroactive to July 1.
Randy made the motion. Do I have a second? Joe has a second. Open for discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Randy?
Aye.
Joe?
You gonna give us something?
My wife and I would like to wish everyone, the council members, their families, the city employees, and their family members, to have a very Merry Christmas and a very safe and wonderful New Year's. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Randy, second?
Second.
Ernie? All those in favor?
Aye.
So carried.